Welcome to the Empower and Evolve podcast, a space where we will explore topics ranging from mindset to career to business, energetics, spirituality, cyclical living, and beyond. I am your host, Kat Tunnyberg. I am a mindset coach and integrative practitioner on a mission to help you take your life from meh to magical. Without further ado, let's plunge into today's episode. Hello, gorgeous. Okay, this podcast episode that you're about to listen to with Lacey, I'm going to warn you, it's going to be juicy. It's probably my favorite interview I've ever done. Let me tell you a little bit about Lacey. So I know the topic of this podcast episode says radical body acceptance. There is so much more to this. We actually dive into female anatomy, female pleasure. I met Lacey through the Earth Daughters community. She's an incredible human, and I just straight away felt extremely connected to her. And I attended her workshop on radical body acceptance. It was the first workshop I attended at the festival. It was actually one of the first workshops offered. And straight away, like everything she was sharing, I was like, oh my God, this woman is speaking my language. Like I could be saying what she's saying with slightly different words. And it was just beautiful. And at the end of the workshop, she offered us the invite to all strip naked, to bear witness our soul and our bodies, and actually write words in our bodies, the words that we wanted to embody. And then the second part of that part of the bus was to actually go around to the different women, look them in the eye, see what you could pick up on, and then write those words on their bodies. It was beautiful practice, incredible. Lacey offers body work. She does womb and abdominal therapy and holistic pelvic care, where hands are on and in another woman's vagina. It's very, very powerful work. And in this podcast episode, we actually go into her story with body acceptance and how she's gotten to where she is now. We go into the story of how she found this line of work. And then we get into some juicy topics around her work. I've experienced one of the sessions with her. I had one of her 90-minute belly and holistic pelvic care sessions at the festival. And it was sacred. It was incredibly sacred. I've never experienced body work in that way. And at one point she was like, okay, I'm going to get on the massage table with you now and you're going to straddle me. And then she was getting ready to put her hands inside of me. And it was so sacred and so beautiful. And I've done a lot of work of reclaiming my connection to my yoni, to my pussy, to my sexuality, to my radiance. And at the end of the session, she said that she could tell, like it was just very healthy. There was blood flow, there was relaxation. Like, yeah, there was little things that she like helped me release and soften and etc. But in general, she said, like, I can tell you've done a lot of work. And that was the most beautiful confirmation to receive that. Anyway, I'm not going to talk too much. You just want to go and listen to this episode because it's freaking insane. Insane. And if you're listening and you live in or around Golden and you would like to have a session with Lacey, please message me on Instagram because she plants a seed at the end of the episode being like, hey, I will travel and do sessions if you have enough people interested. So if that's you, if you're listening to this episode and you're like, oh my God, I want to experience this, send me a message and let's bring her over here to Golden so that you can experience her magic in real life. Welcome to another episode of Empower and Evolve. Today I'm joined by Lacey. Ooh, I'm so excited for today because it's going to be so juicy. Thank you for being here, Lacey.
Thank you for having me.
Lacey and I met through the Earth Daughters Festival community, and we've become really great Instagram friends. And now we've met each other in person. And I've actually had the pleasure to have a holistic pelvic healthcare session with Lacey. And she hosted a beautiful workshop at Earth Daughters Festival called Radical Body Acceptance. And I feel like more people need to hear your message and what you do. So I'm excited to dive into all this magic with you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us a little bit about you first. Who are you? How did
Who
you come
am I?
here? What's been your own journey? I know this is such a loaded question, so whatever comes up, just trust it to flow.
Okay, so I I hate to define myself as a mother, but I am. I am a mom to four boys and one girl. And growing up in the 90s, body acceptance was not a thing. We were taught to hate the way that we looked, and we were always pressured to be really slender. And I was. I was very thin. I had four kids and I was still thin. And then I had my daughter. Um, and that changed everything and how I viewed my body. So, anyways, I am a mom, I'm a wife, I run a business in Saskatoon, which I'm moving to Rosetown. So I do holistic pelvic care for people. I was a birth worker for 15 years and have one birth left. And then I'm hanging up my hat and going to let the women in the community take over that because I feel like my time is done with birth. And I run women's circles in our community, and I have been for 7 years. Um, yeah. So I've been a community builder for as long as I can remember, bringing people together. Someone had said to me yesterday, those who cannot do teach. And yeah, hmm I was like, oh, I was a little bit like miffed about it. But then the more
Uh-huh.
that I thought, I'm like, dang it, it's true.
Yeah.
So looking back at my journey and where I showed up in the community, it was after I was able to integrate those things, then I would go out and teach them.
Uh-huh.
It's a lifelong journey.
It is. Oh my God, I'm like mind blown right now because I can relate to this, especially, I don't know, have you heard about human design?
Yes,
What's your type?
I am a manifesting generator.
Ooh, I love that. Well,
What are
technically,
you?
you have the energy to do. I'm a projector, so
Of
non-energy
course you
type.
are.
Of
Yeah.
course I am. I love that you said it like that. And I really recognize that for me, like when I learned about the fact that I don't have this consistent energy, that was a big journey for me to learn to accept that and
Hmm.
really like stepping into the teacher role. And like this has just put a completely new spin on it for me. Like those who can't do teach, I'm like, oh, well,
Hmm.
doesn't this make sense?
Right? Yeah. It
You've just,
was,
yeah.
yeah, it really made me ponder. I thought
Yeah.
about it all day and I was like, dang it. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that so much. So
Hmm.
I'd love to, considering, we're talking about radical body acceptance, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey of, going from growing up in the 90s
Hmm.
and then, your body changing and learning to accept it, especially being a mom to a daughter. Because I know for me, growing up in the 90s, watching my mom yo-yo diet her life, like her way through me growing up, and then
Hmm.
me picking up these beliefs along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just super curious to hear more about that.
Okay. So my mom was fat growing up and she yo-yo dieted. The cabbage soup diet, Atkins diet, the like anything that was on the cover of a magazine, she was willing to try. And I honestly felt, and I feel terrible saying it, but becoming fat to me felt like the worst thing that could ever happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I based so much of my self-worth into how I look.
Mm-hmm.
So I had 4 boys. I felt really great. And then we had a surprise pregnancy and I had a daughter. And her pregnancy was completely different than any of the other ones. I had very great births, radical home births, just with friends and my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And with her, I ended up having a C-section because I had full placenta previa. So this landed me in the hospital for 8 weeks prior to her birth. And I was really angry and I felt really defeated by my body. And there was a whole lot that was going on in our life. Like we were planning a move, but I didn't want to leave the city until I had her. So my husband moved with all of our kids, and I stayed in the city in the hospital. I couldn't
Wow.
leave the floor of the hospital just in case I had a bleed. They made it really scary. And
Wow.
I've been a birth worker for years, so I had a lot of shame about how this was unfolding.
I
And
bet. As soon as
yeah,
you said that, I actually thought about it. I was like,
mm,
oh, I have to ask her like how she managed to move through that being a
oof, it took
non-traditional birth
years.
worker. You know,
It
it's
took
like,
years and years.
yeah,
Like it probably took till she was 5
wow.
before I felt like okay about it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I had her within 4 weeks, I lost all of the weight, and by 6 weeks, I had gained it all back. So I gained 120 pounds, so more. And
Like
I went
in a couple weeks.
in a couple weeks.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I went to my doctor and he was like, just cut carbs, go for a walk. And I was like, oh gosh, okay, so this is what I'm gonna do. Nothing helped. So then I seen naturopaths and I seen all of the people to try and figure it out. Obviously, it's hormonal. Obviously, maybe it was the surgery. There was so many trails that I followed because I could not be fat. This could only be a moment in time.
Mm.
And I had a friend who is larger, and she's like, who cares? Like, so what? It's just your body. And I was like, devastated because I'm like, well, I care. I care. I don't want to live in this body. And I couldn't accept it because I felt like accepting it was defeat.
Yeah.
But really, that's exactly how we get to truly love ourselves and the body that we live in. Just because we accept it doesn't mean that we can't change it,
Mm-hmm.
but it eliminates all of the self-hatred because what's done is done. You are where you are, regardless of what's happened. So if you're present in this very moment, you can just choose to accept it. You
Mm-hmm.
can't change it. It's a journey.
Mm-hmm.
We don't just wake up overnight and things are radically different.
Yeah.
It takes work and it takes time and it takes patience, and patience is so hard.
It's so hard.
It's so hard, but it's so worth it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You said something at your workshop, and it's the only thing I wrote down at Earth Daughters in my journal. It's literally the only sentence, and that is acceptance is not approval.
Hmm.
And when you said that, it just like landed because, yeah, like it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like we can accept where we are today and still want to change and improve and recognize that, yeah, maybe this isn't the healthiest expression of me. I
Yeah.
actually really love, and this is some people are gonna like judge me for saying this, and I don't care. I love that you said the word fat. And
Not a dirty word.
it's not a dirty word, but so many people are afraid of saying it. The lady that I did my hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming training with, she's also fat, and she
Yeah.
says it on the stage. She's like, "Yeah, I'm fat. Like this. I know I'm not healthy,
Yeah.
And it's like, let's just say it what it is. Like, I have extra fat on my body, and people were like, oh, you said the word. Oh my God. And it's
Yeah.
like, can we just call it for what it is? And at the same time, just recognize, like, yeah, that's just because this is the body that I'm in right now doesn't mean that this is going to be my forever body.
Right. And if it is,
So what?
yeah, you can be healthy and fat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we don't all have to be super thin,
Yeah.
right? Like, and I do find that, I guess one thing that I'd like to touch on
Mhm.
with radical body acceptance, it's not glorifying being in a larger body. And I know that we have a lot of movements going on right now that do, it seems, and maybe that's not the intention, but it does seem that we are glorifying. But I think that it's more than that. Like, I
Yeah.
think that radically accepting where you are is just that. You are just accepting where it is. Maybe you want to change, maybe you don't. That's
Yeah.
totally your prerogative and up to you. And,
Mhm.
but I do feel it's different than some of the other
Yeah.
movements that are happening.
Yeah, I agree because it's so, and this is like such a loaded question and so like not question conversation, and there's so many nuances to it. But the whole, like, oh, let's be all against like weight loss and like blah 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 blah. Let's accept ourselves. Like, can we accept that everything can coexist?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's all
Hmm.
possible, and it ultimately comes down to whatever is right for you.
Yeah. And we don't know everyone's story and we don't know how they got to be where they're at. You know, maybe it was a health issue. Maybe it
Yeah.
was hormonal. Maybe they did just eat like crap and
Yeah.
destroyed their gut and now they're really struggling. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know.
And it definitely changes like the older we get as women, like our bodies change in the way that we, handle food and exercise and
Yep.
everything drastically changes.
Yeah. And we're supposed to have fat on our body. Like we're not supposed to be obese, right? But we are supposed to have
Yeah.
fat on our body, especially our womb. We need that
Yeah.
padding to protect that sacred place.
Yes. So true. And it
Not,
makes
not
it
all fat's bad.
no. And again, this is like not scientific or anything, but if I like look at my friends who have had pregnancies and who've given birth,
Hmm.
the girls who are super, super skinny and have like no fat on their bodies have had a way harder pregnancy and way harder birth than the ones that have a little bit of junk in their trunk.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it makes sense. We do need it. It's protection, it's cushioning, it's like
Yeah.
healthy.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. I'm already loving this conversation. So okay, you gained all this weight and you realized like maybe you didn't get all the answers you were looking for, even though you worked with all these specialists. So, what were some of the practices or things you did to be able to learn to truly accept yourself and be like, okay, well, this is me now.
Hmm. I got sick of my own shit, to be frank. And I have utilized all of these beautiful practices in my life for other things, but I never was able to turn them back on myself. So I did a lot of mirror work and I did a lot of standing in front of the mirror and just saying that I love you. I love you. And I would touch my body and say that I love you and I honor you and I respect you. And I'm sorry that I hated you for so long because it wasn't just when I gained weight. I treated my body like garbage forever,
Yeah.
with restricting and dieting and not wanting to look a certain way. I didn't nourish my body properly. We didn't ever learn about it either. I'm really grateful that we are in this state right now where everything is so accessible and there is such a big push for nutrient dense foods and like really building ourselves back up. So that's one of the places that I started was I tried to treat my body as though it was postpartum. Um, innate postpartum. Do you know,
I don't know too
Rochelle?
much about it, so I'd love for you
Okay.
to share on it.
So she had come to Saskatoon years ago and had taught a course, um, Mexican traditions and like a traditional way of eating and supporting the postpartum body. So everything cooked. You want stews, you want soups, you want everything that's really easily digestible so you're able to get all of the micronutrients and it can really help to build your body up. Um, and the reason that I really started to adapt this was because I had 5 babies. I nursed for 12 years and I didn't have a break. So my
Wow.
body was completely depleted. I
Yeah.
still feel like it is, and my youngest is 9. Like they say that it takes 7 years for your body to be nutrient dense after one pregnancy.
Wow.
7 years, like that's a long time.
It's a long time.
And I had 5, so it's a journey. So I focused on the nutrient dense foods. Um, I did a lot of mirror work, self love work. Um, that to me, it felt really juvenile to do,
Interesting.
but it works. Because how can something so simple work so well?
Uh,
But I think it was that intimate time where it was just me and myself, and I was able to really just like connect. I started doing a self-oiling
mhm.
practice. And it was really slow and really intentional. And I touched all of the places on my body, but I really spent a lot of time on my belly
Mm,
or my thighs or my bum
mhm,
or my breasts or my arms. And I really just focused all of the love that I could muster up, even if it was only a tiny little bit, and just sent love to those places.
mm. I love that.
Now, I'm still in a place where I would like to lose weight.
Mhm,
I've accepted where I'm at and my body and the way that it is, and I'm very comfortable. And I really love what she's done for me and where I'm at in life and who I am as a person. So when I look at my body, there's not the ugh.
mhm.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's a good body. It's got me to where I'm at, and I'm really grateful.
Yeah.
Lots of gratitude practices because even though your body may not be where you want it to be, um, there's so many things in our life that we can be grateful for.
Mm,
It doesn't all have to surround our body.
mhm.
And I know that for a lot of women, it is on the forefront of their mind how we look and how we present to the world. It's hard and it's been ingrained in us for a long time. And I think that the younger generations, like I know girls in high school right now, and they don't care.
That's so great.
It's not like when we were younger.
Oh,
Like
that's so great. I'm so glad
it
to hear that.
is. And maybe they do, but it's not the same. Like
Uh-huh.
it's not the same.
That's so refreshing to hear.
Hmm.
Because it's,
Yeah.
yeah, those things you've mentioned, I can relate so much. This is the mirror work is actually a big homework practice I give to a lot of my clients, even if it's like not body acceptance, but in general, like
Yeah.
more self-love.
Yep.
Have you ever heard about the Ho'oponopono?
Mm-mm. Oh, Hopo'ono?
Yeah, it's like the I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, like that's a practice I because it's we learned that during my training and
Mm.
like, using that as a mantra. So that's what I give my clients as mirror work is like I tell them to put their hand on their heart in the mirror, look themselves in the eye and say like 7 times, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you.
Yes.
And oh, the feedback I get.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's hard at first.
absolutely. I think another big thing is the forgiveness piece,
Yeah.
right? Like we hold ourselves to such a high standard. And when things don't go as we planned, then there's a lot of shame attached to it. And we get in this really messy relationship with ourselves
Mhm.
where there is a lot of hate and a lot of shame and a lot of inability to give ourselves grace.
Yeah.
So to be able to just hold whatever version needs to be held and give them forgiveness just because they are you.
Yes.
There's something really powerful in being able to sit with that.
Yeah, I agree. Such powerful work. And I'm so glad you're out there sharing this message. It was one of my favorite workshops I attended at the festival
Thank you.
because it's just so relatable, and I feel like it doesn't matter how many years you've been on this journey of accepting yourself, there's still going to be days where you slip.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a continuous journey.
Hmm.
I'd love to now talk a little bit about your work because it's so
Okay.
juicy.
Okay. I would love
So
to.
tell me a little bit, how did you go from birth work to holistic pelvic care? Tell us
Mm.
about your journey. And what is holistic pelvic care anyway?
Okay. So it was my own journey that took me to it. Um, I had issues with my periods after I had my daughter, and I was bleeding for like 12 to 15 days, and I would only have like 10 days and then start bleeding again.
Wow.
And I, of course, went to all of the people, and they told me I could have an ablation, an IUD, or a hysterectomy. And I laughed and was like, yep, whatever. I'll see you in a couple years.
I love that. Well done.
And I started to see this woman named Carly Ray. She used to live in Saskatoon. My uterus placement was misaligned, and I had a lot of hormonal issues after that birth and a lot of stuff that I had to work through. Um, so I started seeing her, and things started to really shift. She did move. Um, I also started to see a lot of issues with my clients when they were in postpartum, whether it was incontinence issues or, um, sex was hurting, there was scar tissue that was pulling, low libido, digestive issues, all sorts of things. Anyways, so I had seen a course that was being offered in Bowen Island with Martin Baudouin, who I've seen a lot of people share about. So I applied, I got in, I went, I learned. And I was really intimidated going because a majority of the people that were there were massage therapists or physiotherapists. I have no bodywork experience at all. And I was like, who am I to be here? And I'm like, I'm trusting. I'm just trusting that this is exactly where I'm meant to be. This needs to be something that I share.
Mhm.
And the first time that I put my hands on a woman's body, it was like this visceral remembrance
Mm,
of this is work that I'm truly meant to do.
mm.
And it was so natural for me. And I understood things in a way that maybe not a lot of the other people did because their brains are trained for massage.
Yeah.
So they had a lot of unlearning to do. Um, but it was so empowering and so amazing. And I do feel like it's a spiritual experience.
Mhm.
It is something that is not like going to pelvic floor physio. It's a whole body work process and de-armoring before we even get to genitals. We're opening up the fascia, we're bringing life force back into our body. And we love to hide things in strange places when we're not ready to deal with them, whether it's in the ribs or the hips or internally. And it's a process. It's not just, a 45-minute thing My sessions at home are typically 3 hours,
Wow.
and it's a lot of slow work that we do so that we can truly get to where we need to be.
Wow. That's incredible. And for who are listening, being like, what is it still? Well, Lacey puts her hand on your belly, on your legs, on your vulva, and inside your vagina.
Yes, I do.
And it's beautiful. I can attest.
It really is. And a lot of people are weirded out by it because they're like, oh, I don't know if I could ever do it.
Mhm.
And like, sure, but it's only weird for a moment.
Yeah.
And then it's not weird because we do create such a nice space
Yes.
and it's all by permission. And if that is not where we want to go during the session, we don't have to because it is about listening to our body and what she wants. And sometimes we hit a wall, and that's okay. Honoring where she's at and what she wants is a win.
Yeah.
How you really make a lasting change in relationship with your body.
Yeah. As actually asking for that permission.
Mhm.
That's so huge. And, I'd been following you on social media for a little while and I'd seen that this is the work you do. And I was so intrigued by it, as I'm sure a lot of people probably are.
Yeah.
And I've been on this big journey of connecting to myself and to my yoni and to my pleasure. And was always curious about like, well, would it be like to be in this professional setting and have like another woman hold me like that and guide me like this? And obviously at the festival, I then like ran into you and I was like, okay, I'm gonna ask. I'm gonna ask and like see if you have sessions available. And of course you did. And then I agreed to it at that point. And I literally remember my body having this like little bit of like a freak out. But then being like, no, but this is exactly what it's meant to be. And I remember going back to camp and I camped with like 15 women. So it was like a big group. And I told them, like, oh my God, I just did a thing. Like, I just agreed to this. And everyone was like, wow, that's so cool. And like, oh my God, you'll have to tell us all about it. And it was beautiful. Like after your session, I came back and they were all at the fire and they were like, oh, tell us, like, tell us everything. And it was beautiful to share. And I'll get in a moment to talk a little bit more into like what your sessions are like so that people can hear it from you. But I just remember saying like it was such a sacred experience. And then a lot of the women around our campfire were like, someone asked, like, oh, would you guys do it? And I think there was literally only one woman who said that she wouldn't. And it's so nice to see that change
Mhm.
because again, like we've just like medicalized our bodies as women. We
Yeah,
think that some male can tell us about how we function and but isn't it true that like no one besides ourselves or another woman can really hold us in the way that we can truly be held?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that the more connected you are to your own body, the more you're open to receiving and the more you're able to be held like that. Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of women that come that are trying to get pregnant
Mhm.
or they have a lot of stuff going on and it's not the same level of connection that happens. It's
Mhm.
really tender and beautiful, but you know that there's a lot of stuff that they have to work through in their own being to get to that place where they're able to be completely surrendered and open to receive.
Yeah. It's a really big piece of surrendering.
Yeah.
I am curious. Okay, maybe I'll ask this one first. What does a session with you look like? Like you said, it's 3 hours normally. I had a 90-minute experience, so I don't
Yeah.
even know what the 3 hours would look like. So can you, yeah, paint a picture of what those 3 hours look
For
like?
sure. Yeah. So initially, when you come in, there's a lot of talking. We go through your health history. Um, we talk about what your intention is for the session, what you'd like to see as we work together, and how things will unfold. Typically, no one comes just for like one session.
Mhm.
Typically, I start with belly work, and we do that for a few sessions to really gain that trust and that safety network before we ever go in.
Okay.
Um, I will get them to undress and just in their bra and panties and stand in front of me, and we will do a body scan and see what areas of the body are holding tension, where there's restriction, where their hips are, where their knees are at. And it's so interesting what you can see from someone just standing there and their posture and their head position and how that affects their diaphragm and their digestive organs and their pelvic bowl. And you can see so much just from having someone stand in front of you. So that takes about 15 minutes, and then they lay down and we start at the feet and work our way up, flip over, do the same thing. We release the pelvic diaphragm. Sometimes it's spicy, sometimes it's not. And then we do a lot of belly work. So, belly work is really important for us as women, especially. It's great for men. I do it on my husband all of the time. Um, but we hold so much in our bellies, and it helps to really shift the fascia. And when we have a soft belly and everything is able to expand and move, then it gives everything a true chance to actually shift back to where it needs to be. So if we are doing extensive belly work prior to an internal session, things really soften and they are able to go into alignment. Because
Yeah.
that's what we're looking for in a session is alignment.
Yeah.
We bring everything to the center, towards the belly button, to the midline. We're breaking that, not breaking, we are expanding the fascia. We are moving your intestines and we are breaking up adhesions and we are just bringing life force back.
Beautiful. It's such a sacred space. Like I remember when I had my session with you, that was one of the things I actually said at the campfire afterwards. I was like, it just felt so sacred. Like I've
Mhm.
never experienced, and I've had my fair share of body work,
Yeah.
like lots of different things, but nothing has ever felt as sacred.
Mm. That makes me very happy to hear.
Yeah, you do an incredible job, and
Thank
it's
you.
so beautiful. What would be the difference of the work that you do with holistic pelvic care compared to maybe someone who does it more from that clinical angle of physiotherapist?
We love our physiotherapists. Just gonna say that right now. It's very different because we spend more time with you. A physiotherapist is not going to spend an hour in your vagina.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I don't want to get in trouble for anything that I say,
It's
but
okay. We
it's
can't
very
please
different.
everyone.
No, no, but it is very different
Yeah.
because, and not that physiotherapists don't have tender love and care because they absolutely do.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of exercises involved, right? Like any physio that I seen, they put their finger in, they assess the muscles, and that was it. And they were like, okay, so this is now what you need to do, which is great. But yeah,
Yeah. Very, very different.
very different.
Yeah, because I've never had a physio do that kind of work to me, so it's hard for me to kind of imagine. So they don't actually do the work that you do, where they help release the pressure themselves. What?
I I don't know. So I can only speak from my own experience.
Yeah.
I had a bladder prolapse.
Uh-huh.
It was only like second degree. So I could feel it inside of my vagina. I didn't have incontinence issues really or anything. So I had gone to see her. So I had three exercises that were given to me. and it was try in my head to pick up a pea with my pee hole, a blueberry with my vagina, and a grape with my bum. So you would
Okay.
picture that and use those muscles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
So then I would see her and she would put her finger in and assess the situation. And it was literally maybe 2 minutes.
Wow.
She was inside and she would sit beside me. She wouldn't look at my vulva or anything. There was always a sheet.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
Physiotherapists are not taught to release anything with the vulva.
Right.
And I have some people that I know that had done another pelvic training
Uh-huh.
and they're only focused on internal and nothing with the vulva. And I do think that it's really important. Like it is part of us
Yeah.
and we do have fascial restrictions. Sometimes we get adhesions under our clitoris or our hood. Those need to be broken up. You can do
Uh-huh.
that yourself, but it's nice to bring awareness to the woman that you're working with. If you've used a vibrator for years, you're gonna have adhesions and your orgasms are not going to be as good as they could be.
Mm. It's funny. There was actually someone at camp, like, because I said that, because I was like, yeah, and she like told me that everything is like nice and loose, but because whatever, we don't have to go super into that. But I remember you saying like, oh yeah, and you were saying with like power, like battery powered tools, and how they actually desensitize us. And one of the ladies was like, "What? Oh, this is not acceptable."
Oh, right. I was one of those people. I only ever used a vibrator and trying to wean myself off and be able to have an orgasm without, it took a long time. And it
Mm.
was really frustrating, but I had a lot of scar tissue. I had
Yeah.
a lot of things that I needed to work through mentally and physically
Yeah.
before I was able to get to that point.
Yes.
Being in right relationship with yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those things
It's
are helpful. And you can tell a lot about a woman's hormones just by looking at her vulva,
fascinating.
like your lips and the color, and those are all important things. So I guess that's different than a physio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's super fascinating. A lot of the women I follow who do a lot of like sex work
Yep.
actually all say no to battery power tools because
Yeah.
of that whole desensitizing. And I feel like as well with the female orgasm, like we have been made believe that it has to be the same as men, which battery to like powered vibrators are great. They get you there quick and it's like, oh,
For
okay.
sure.
And it's
Yep.
exactly like the male orgasm, just quick and it's over.
Right.
That's not how the female orgasm works.
Mm. No, it's so expansive. I
Yeah.
have a teacher that I learned a lot of birth stuff from. Her name is Wapio. I don't know if you're
Uh-huh.
familiar with her or not. So she's this granny midwife from down in the States, and
Lovely.
she is incredible. But one of the things that she taught us was about expansive orgasms and how, your first orgasm and then you go to your second one, and how once you reach your third one, you're in a different realm and you're able to manifest and you're able to like call in the things that you really want. Some people call it sex magic, some
Yep.
people, right? Like whatever way that you want to look at it, but you are in a different state and it's not like a man's orgasm.
No.
Like they are so expansive and they are so big and juicy and you do go to a different place
Yes.
and you are able to manifest and it's a fun practice.
It is very fun. Love me some
Like,
sex magic.
yeah, it's so good. But again, it takes that level of trust with your
Yeah.
own self and your body to be able to get there.
Yeah.
Because a few years ago, when she told us about this, I just rolled my eyes and was like,
Yeah.
ugh, like my orgasms are so quick.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
it just felt like so much work.
Yeah. It's been a big process of unlearning for me as well as to
Yeah.
get away from that quick orgasm to actually be like, no,
Yeah.
This is a sacred practice of lovemaking, and
Mm.
it's not just 10 or 15 minutes. This
No.
is like we set time aside,
Yeah.
and it's all about the female
Hmm. Us too.
radical body acceptance. Let's talk about pleasure.
Absolutely, though. But pleasure heals.
Yeah.
Like, we need to have pleasure in our life. If we don't, what is the point?
Yeah. Yeah.
It just needs to be sexual pleasure. Pleasure of
Exactly.
all aspects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so true that the more women actually allow themselves to live a pleasurable life, so not just sexual pleasure, like you said, but really tap into pleasure in whatever way they experience it, they really unlock this level of radiance. Like, I really love that she uses that word in Pussy Reclamation. And I've really taken that word on because it's like, it's almost like I can't think of a better word to explain when a woman is in her full power. Because it is
Yeah.
that radiance that just like shines out of her where she
Mm.
walks into the room and people turn their head and it's like, who is she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Need to
great
be
word.
turned on for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. um, Talking about turn on,
Yeah.
this is actually one of the questions one of my girlfriends asked me. She was like, when you had the session, like, was it pleasurable? Did it turn you on? And I definitely like my personal experience was I could have chose to allow myself to go down that road,
Yep.
or I could choose to allow myself to stay in that sacred space of allowing myself to receive and surrender in a different place.
Yeah.
That I was like definitely at one point at a crossroads. I was like,
Yeah.
which road, which path am I going to take here?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, is that something that a lot of your clients experience, or yeah,
Yeah. So I've had some mixed reviews. Okay. So um we do this one thing called cupping. And your finger is on the clitoris and you just do this at the vaginal opening until you give me permission to go inside. So this is a way to allow the tissue to really expand and get me to go in. Okay. So I have a girlfriend and she was like, I don't know about this, like the whole session in general.
yeah,
And she did come. And then I did that. And at the end, she was like, I was really turned on by that. And she's like, is that weird? And I
yeah,
was like, no,
yeah,
it's not. I'm like, that is a win to be
uh-huh.
able to feel that kind of pleasure in our body. It doesn't have to lead to sexual pleasure, right? It doesn't have to. But there's so many women that don't have any sensation, like at all.
Well, okay, everyone, by the way, if you're listening to this on the podcast, you may want to come onto YouTube and watch this because like Lacey actually showed in the camera what the cupping motion is. And this is like too good not to be sharing. And but that blows my mind because that was actually exactly the moment where I could have chose to go down either path.
Yeah.
And it's very pleasurable. And that blows my mind that some women feel nothing.
Yeah. Because they're just super disconnected.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so sad.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that if that's the case and they are disconnected, do you find that the answer to the question of do I have permission to enter is more often no then because of that?
No. No, actually I don't.
That's great.
Um, so even if they're disconnected from their pussy and they don't have a lot of feeling, there still is the self-awareness and there's still everything else.
Mhm.
So their yes is still valid,
Mm,
right? So there's a lot of reasons why a woman would be disconnected from her pussy.
mm,
Um, we live in a masculine world. We're not taught how to live inside of our body.
yeah,
We're not taught how to connect with her.
yeah,
Like that book that you mentioned, Pussy, it was a huge shifting point for myself.
yeah,
Oh, what? I can create the life that I desire by tuning into my pussy? What?
yeah.
Oh, okay. So it took me a long time. My vagina was numb. I
Mm.
felt nothing. It was completely disconnected. She was completely disconnected from my entire being. My idea of sex and intimacy, it was a job. So I treated my body really poorly when it came to sex and pleasure. So of course she's going to be numb. And I think that a session like I do, it is part of the reclamation, and there's only so much that we can do on our own physical body. Most of us can't reach and touch around our cervix and massage it like another person could do.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that we can do in a session to bring that softness back. And with the muscles being tight and loss of feeling, once we're able to bring back blood flow and that softness, then you start to feel more. So you can do a lot of internal, like emotional work, and you can do a lot of your own internal vaginal work as well. But to have someone else to assist you and be a witness, it does bring that softness and that juiciness back a lot quicker. Mhm.
Love that. I love that. And especially, coming from another woman, I think that's just so, so beautiful and so, so sacred.
This is the women's work that our world has been waiting for.
Yeah.
And I know that it's kind of in this place of it being taboo,
Uh,
but it's going to be everywhere. And this is what we need. We need to be held by our sisters.
yeah.
We need to have those really solid female relationships in our lives because I do believe that it's going to change the trajectory of everything.
Yeah. I
Women
believe
have been
that too.
pitted against each other for so long and coming into union with each other in a friendship, platonic type of way, but also in a really sacred way, I do think that it changes things.
Hmm. I
Mhm.
agree. I agree. And I love that you're doing this work and helping women to reclaim their connection to their pussy. I think it's really, really beautiful. What are some of the, and I know we're already talking a long time, but this is such a juicy topic. I promise we're going to slowly start to wrap it up. But I have one more kind of bigger question, or maybe
Sure.
it's not even that big. But what are some of the things that you can help women with when it comes to these pelvic healthcare sessions, holistic pelvic care sessions?
Okay, so one of the main things that we help with is for body work, like digestive issues. We can help just with belly work, okay? Digestive issues, really heavy periods, our organ placement. We can help with pain internally, just with belly work.
Wow.
Um, any sort of incontinence issues or prolapsing issues can all be done outside of the body without ever going inside.
Wow.
Now, internally, obviously, we can access things in a whole different realm.
Huh.
Um, so loosening the muscles. I hate, no, loosening is such a terrible, like softening the muscles, bringing blood flow back, um, shifting the position of the cervix, helping with uterine wall, like prolapsing issues or cervical or uterine. Um, you're able to access different points that you're not able to through the belly. So it is very effective to do it internally.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, anything. We can help with pretty much anything.
Amazing. Is
Yeah.
there a way for people who are listening who are not close to
Yeah.
Saskatoon or Rose
Yeah.
Town to
Yep.
find practitioners who practice this kind of body work? Like, is there a way, is there a way to find you all?
Google will not help you. I actually did a Google search yesterday just to see.
Hmm.
Um, So I'm currently in Maw School with Carly, Ray, and Andrea, and they are having a web page dedicated to everyone that's trained with them and
Oh,
where they are located.
yeah,
So that's a good resource. I can send it to you
yeah,
once it's finally up and live.
yeah.
Martin Beaudoin, he's integrative pelvic care. He also has a directory
Right.
available. I know in Canada, there's very few,
Hmm.
like maybe there's 20.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is definitely something that I encourage if you're interested to take some training and offer this in your community
Hmm.
because it's powerful work and it's very needed.
Hmm. It's
So,
actually interesting you say that. One of the other girls who lives here in town, who was also at the festival, said to me after, "So, Kat, is that going to be your next like thing that you got to do?" Yeah, I love the sacredness of it, which is
mhm.
probably what does attract me to it because it's not
Yeah.
just I'm not a very clinical person. I'm not
Mhm.
very like logical, scientific, but that kind of it's way more in the spiritual, sacred woo-woo land that I live. Oh,
So
yeah,
sorry.
it's all good. Well, this is perfect. I guess the perfect lead way to kind of my final question that I always have for my beautiful guests is what would be your one piece of advice for someone who's listening and they're on this journey of body acceptance and reclaiming their connection to their womb, to their pussy? What would be your one piece of advice to that person?
Stop listening to everyone around you. Stop going to all of the doctors and practitioners and start to listen and get in right relationship with yourself.
Mm, mic drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to shift everything.
Yeah.
Once you know yourself and truly are able to connect with yourself, everything is a breeze.
Yeah.
And
I
I think
love
that
that.
that's a huge part of what we need to do as
Yeah.
women, whether it's body, whether it's pussy, whether whatever it is, it's coming back home to ourselves.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. I don't say this. I don't think I've ever said this. This could be my favorite podcast episode interview I've ever had.
Thank
But
you.
it's so juicy.
It's great. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. This has
Thank
been
you for inviting me.
incredible. I'll have Lacey's info in the show notes so you can look her up on Instagram and also your website, I think you gave me as well.
Yes.
And it's worth traveling for this woman.
Thank you.
I know. Like definitely plan to see you again, hopefully next year at the festival. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah. You could
shot.
also invite me out.
Yes,
Yeah.
I could. There we
Yeah.
go. I know you're coming to Golden in August. Maybe you'll have
I
to offer some
am.
sessions.
I am. Yes. I have gone other places for people if they set up enough sessions.
Uh-huh.
So I will travel.
Huh. You've just planted an idea in my head now. Great. I love it.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you. Yes. It was nice to connect.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into the Empower and Evolve podcast. It means so much to me that you've taken time out of your day to tune in. If you're open to it, and if you love the episode, I would love to invite you to take a couple of minutes to rate and review the podcast on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. This will help me reach new audiences and share this message more broadly. And if this episode really struck a chord with you, I would like to invite you to share it on social media and tag me at It's Coach Kat so we can spread the love together. Until next time, I'll catch you there.